Well, this is Kyle back here with Salty 7. We're filming live in Tulum. I just finished up Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat and decided to come here and do a little integration. Beautiful place. I have the lovely Dr. Teshna on this call, and Dr. Teshna is a practitioner, a chiropractor. I'd like you to share a little bit about your past experience, but the reason I found Dr. Teshna was from a close friend who located a practice to help relieve stress, anxiety, and change our subconscious programming. And that was really huge for me because I was in the process of dealing with a lot of that stuff. And that was what the universe was bringing to me at the moment. So just really excited to have you on and to share your story. I'd like to, hear a little bit about your spiritual journey, hear about the process with which you went through in creating this MTT process that you have authored, and just whatever else comes up. So feel free.
Okay. Well, I mean, if I'm looking at my spiritual journey, I guess I would have to start when I was a child, because when I was like 8 years old, my mother was into parapsychology, and she took a class in that. And part of that was allowing her family members to join the class as well, as part of her her fee for doing the class. And so when I was 8, she brought me and my sister with her. And one of the things they were teaching there is how to get into alpha and basically in meditation mode, and how to visualize what you wanted and that type of thing, but also the power of the subconscious and how to see aura and how to look at the etheric field and all these kinds of things. So I was exposed to that starting when I was 8. And then wow. I remember growing up, we would, after dinner, we'd go and sit in the living room, and my mom would read us a chapter out of the book, The Power of the Subconscious, which is kind of ironic, right? I just thought about that. But, we knew the power of the subconscious, but I didn't know a tool specific to get in there to reprogram it until much, much later. So then I continued on, and I decided to go to chiropractic college. And there I learned muscle testing. And that was a long time ago, back in 1983, when muscle testing was brand new, because Dr. Goodhart had just basically invented it in 1976 is when he discovered it and then started to use it and teach it. So I was definitely a trailblazer in the muscle testing world. And so, but it wasn't just muscle testing for supplements or that type of thing. It was muscle testing the whole entire body, and then figure out which muscles are working, which ones are not working, and then use different adjusting techniques or meridian techniques to help reset them so they would be working. And then in 1984, I was at an international conference of applied kinesiology where Dr. Roger Callahan, who's the father of tapping, who happened to be an applied kinesiologist also, and had applied this knowledge to his field, which was psychology. And so he presented for the very first time his ideas of using tapping on meridian points to help with releasing emotions out of the body. And so I happened to be there in 1984 listening to this. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. So I started using his principles back then. So I dare you to find anybody who's been doing tapping longer than I have. 1984, right? That's when he came up with it. And so then I start using this on myself in various ways, but it was very rudimentary, just mostly just to let go of stress and that type of thing. And then in 1987, I was in Hawaii taking another international conference of total body modification, which is an advanced form of applied kinesiology. And at that conference, Dr. Scott Walker, who's the inventor of neuroemotional technique, happened to be there. And he was presenting for the very first time his technique on neuroemotional technique, and where he was talking about the effects of emotions on the body and how to be able to do physical corrections to help that would hold, because you would release the emotional component of it. And yep. So I started applying that. So I was there again, the very first time he presented that work. It was like I was fated, to be doing this kind of thing. And so the universe, my higher self, whatever you want to call it, was directing me in the right direction, in the right places at the right time, so that I could do that. So I started applying these principles, and then I ended up taking all his trainings over the many next years. And I took like that training at least 15 times. Like he has like different levels. So I took all of that and became certified in neuroemotional technique, and it's a fabulous technique. And then, but that is only taught to chiropractors and acupuncturists and, nurse practitioners and psychologists and that type of thing. And so I wanted to develop something that would be a lot simpler that I could teach my patients so that they would be able to have a tool that they could use for themselves. It's like I can give a fish, but I like to teach how to fish also, so that people are just not dependent on me for every little thing. They can come to me when they can't figure out something, but it's nice if they have a tool that they can use in their own lives whenever they need it. So I developed a technique that's a blend of muscle testing and tapping and meridian therapy that comes more from like NET to teach my patients so that they would be able to start helping themselves. So over the years, I developed it further and made it simpler and more complete. And so I've been teaching that now for a couple decades and always improving it. It used to be a 2-day training. Now it's a 3-day training. So that I can teach people more things. So like in the training, basically, I can teach people how to let go of limiting beliefs in basically less than a minute. It's really seconds. Yeah, there's like 2 different ways of clearing them, as you know now,
Yep.
since you've taken the training. And but also how to get rid of phobias, how to get rid of fears and PTSD, the effects of PTSD. Also how to truly forgive on all levels. So I'm going to let you talk for a second here.
Uh-oh, yep, you set me up. So you are correct. I have done your training, and I found it very beneficial. I also found it very easy to follow. It wasn't that complicated. And, we all have our limiting beliefs. And so in the beginning, I was feeling like I still needed a practitioner to help me. And there was benefits from that. But I do agree with you that there's such a personal uplifting benefit to having the power to do all this yourself. And once I was able to get through that subconscious programming that I need someone else to help me, was able to start doing this work myself. And as you kind of alluded to, I did a bunch of forgiveness work on my own, and actually just recently, and it was very interesting. There was some physiological effects that went on during that process. So that told me, okay, yeah, there's stored energy associated with these thoughts, right? I essentially just wrote out a list of all these different things that came to my mind as far as what I would like to forgive whoever for whatever. And as I started working through your process to clear those, I had energy coming through my body, like moving out of my body, physiological impacts. And I was glad that was happening, because that not only did that validate the process, it validates this concept that stored energy in our body from trapped emotions and traumas is a very real thing. And it also, I found it pleasing to me to have those effects, even though they're hard to kind of go through in the moment. But it's telling me that something's healing, something is changing inside of my body. And then, of course, after those physiological effects had left, and everybody's a little bit different, and you can speak to this too, Dr. Tashna, but for me personally, sometimes, depending on the severity of what I'm trying to forgive, or the severity of the belief I'm trying to let go, or the programming I'm trying to change, sometimes it could be, several minutes, an hour, a couple of hours. It could be the rest of the day where I'm kind of processing that information and letting it go. And but afterwards, it was like this huge weight lifted off. I had a smile on my, like permagrin on my face. Just felt in a really good mood. And so I guess you could say that's my testimonial to doing the forgiveness process. But yeah, it definitely has helped me. And I really thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's my goal, is to help as many people as possible learn this so that they can help themselves. So it's very powerful. Yeah, and so, and to that effect, I have also been doing a 1-hour forgiveness call every Sunday for almost a year now, where every Sunday I invite people to come, and then I lead them through that forgiveness process so that anybody can experience it. And it's a body-mind technique, and that's why you felt these effects. So some people, as they're clearing, they might feel a little nauseous, or they might feel a little headache somewhere, or they might feel a sensation in their gallbladder, or their wherever that energy is stored. But then as they clear it, it goes away. It just clears out. And so it's literally releasing the charge from that meridian about this particular situation. And the way I like to explain it is that it's kind of like when you want to access a limiting belief, or you want to access a certain person you want to forgive, you need to, it's like opening a computer. So if you open your computer, you can't just start typing and think that it's going to go in the right document. You have to open your computer, you have to go to the document, you have to open the document, you have to put the cursor where you want it, and now you can start typing and changing things or adding things, right? So this is the same thing. It's like we go into the computer, so to speak, by using muscle testing to figure out what's in the subconscious program, and then you decide whether you like that program or not. And if you don't like the program, then you can change it. And not only that, you can make sure that you put the opposite program in there to make sure that you don't leave a vacuum. You know, you clear something, and then you can put something else in there that you want instead.
So part of what was my path to you was a video I found with Bruce Lipton talking about subconscious programming. And that was my awakening, if you will, into this computer system that's in our brain. It's always running in the background. And surprisingly, it's 90+%, depending on who you talk to, 92%, 95%, 97%. But it's a large amount of the percentage of our brain computing power that's always going on behind the scenes. And it's kind of hidden. That's why they call it subconscious. It's below the surface of our consciousness. So if it's below the surface of our consciousness, we're really not aware of what it is. And so this awakening moment that I had when I found that video with Bruce Lipton talking about his experience, I'm going to say the word, he's kind of like the father of epigenetics. I'm not sure if that's correct, but he's done a lot of research over many decades on epigenetics. And he, if you just go on YouTube and search for his videos, you'll probably find an interview where he's talking about his stem cell research project and how chemicals produced by our brain induce an environment in the blood serum, which then the blood serum environment tells the stem cell what to produce: muscle cell, skin cell, bone cell. So all the stem cells were exactly the same, identical, but it was the environment that produced a difference in the cell production. And so he postulates that that's what's going on inside of our body. And so many other people are now speaking the same language, that it's a chemical produced in our body that produces a physiological effect inside of us. And so I was blown away by that. And that's why I was like, oh, I need to start digging into subconscious programming. Ergo, you, Dr. Teshna, because I was like confused. And the reason I'm bringing all this up is because our viewers may be like, well, what's the point of all this? Well, that's the point, that this subconscious programming is always running in the background. And it will impact us in ways that we would have no idea until you start to become consciously aware that your subconscious is always running, and it's dictating the shots in many occasions. And so I guess where I'm trying to go with this is that I became enlightened, but also frustrated, because I was like, oh, great. I now know why I'm having these problems, but the how to fix wasn't clear. And then, Sean brought it to my attention, and I was like, oh, I need to talk with you. And that's kind of how the whole process went. So really, in a nutshell, you have a process that's very efficient, easy to use, and very effective to assist in changing these subconscious programs. Let's talk a little bit about how to identify subconscious programs. Would you like to share with our viewers on that?
Sure. So basically, the way that I found that was the most direct to figure out what's in the subconscious is using the body as a tool, because the body doesn't lie. So when you muscle test someone and you have them, for example, and you test the arm and it's strong to begin with, and then you have them say something like, for example, my name is Teshna, and I test the muscle again, and I should be strong on that because That's my name, and therefore I should be congruent with that, and the body will stay strong. But if I say my name is Paul, then my muscle will get inhibited, and then I cannot hold it. And so on. So anything that you say, if you muscle test yourself and you're not switched, and that's the caveat right there. And that's one of the things that I teach in the training. There is such a thing as switching. And switching means it's a neurological disorganization that prevents your brain from being able to know what's congruent and what's not congruent, what's right and left, what's front and back, what's top and bottom. So those are the people that, you tell them to go right and they go left. Or in my office, I tell people, go on your stomach, and they go on their back, and so forth. So they're switched neurologically. And when you're switched, you can't use the muscle testing if it doesn't work, because your brain is not able to figure out what's congruent and what's not congruent on a steady basis. So you need to clear switching first. And so I teach that in the training so that you know how to clear that. Once you're not switched, then you can use the muscle test as a tool to figure out what you're congruent with and what you're not congruent with. And the big difference with how I teach the muscle testing is it's not a yes, no answer. It's not an oracle type of muscle testing. I'm not asking, do I have the belief that love and life mean being criticized? No, I'm not doing that. I'm testing the muscle as I'm saying, I can let go of the belief that love means being criticized. And then I test myself. And if I go weak on that, that means I can't let go of that belief that love means being criticized. And guess what? That means I'm going to look for people who are critical, because I need to be criticized, feel loved. And if they don't criticize me, I will do whatever it takes to be criticized, because I need that to feel loved, if that's what my belief is, which a lot of us are, because unfortunately, most of our parents were criticals, or a lot of people had parents who were critical. And so we believe then that that's the way love is. And sometimes it's not only how people love us that they're being critical, but also how we need to love others is to be critical.
So we got a little technical, but let's go back to a higher level. Subconscious programming as a on a higher level would be more like, if I am failing at business, well, then you must have negative programming subconsciously around business. If I'm failing at money management, you must have negative programming around that. There's a way to quickly identify in a more holistic manner, big scale, these problem areas in your life. And then you go more surgically by using kinesiology, or AKA muscle testing, to identify, are we congruent or incongruent? Is that a correct statement?
Yes, exactly. So like what I tell people is, if you want to know what your subconscious program is, or what what is going on, just look at your life. Your life is a perfect mirror of your subconscious program. So if your life is doing exactly what you want it to be doing, let's say financially, then that means that whatever your subconscious programs are about money are working for you. So you don't need to change them. You don't need to even look at it. If your love life is working the way you want, then same thing. That means your subconscious programming is working for you. But if your love life is not what you want it to be, then that means there's also some subconscious programs that are not allowing you to have that love life that you want. Or same thing with money. If your money situation isn't what you want, that means there's subconscious programming in there that's preventing you from having what you want. Same thing with health, same thing with career, any subjects really.
So in your MTT process, it's using meridian therapy and it's using somatics. So you're speaking as you're tapping.
Yeah,
and this
semantics.
process,
Semantics, it's a little different. It's semantic testing. Semantic means a sentence.
okay,
Somatic means the body.
got it.
So semantics means sentences, like speaking.
And if you would just share with our viewers a brief explanation, because they're like, okay, what's tapping mean? If they don't know what tapping is, if you would, whatever you're comfortable with sharing, just so that people have a better understanding of what are we doing. There's meridians in different places, and we're tapping as we're speaking, and just to give a better understanding.
Yes. So basically we are covered with acupuncture points all over the body, but there are certain points like the beginning of meridians or the ends of meridians that are more powerful points, or like the beginnings, like 1.12 or whatever. And other points as well that you can tap, like this, for example, like there's a point right there, stomach 1. That's the first point of the stomach meridian. So when you tap that point there with your fingers, that gives energy to that meridian. And then as we tap these points, I have people say certain things. And so as you say these things and you tap that, it starts to reprogram the subconscious. And there's like a series of points that we do, similar to what people are familiar with EFT, except that this is a much shorter sequence. So it's quicker. You just use it and it just works. And also because with EFT, it's a great technique and it really works mostly for getting rid of stress, like when you know what's going on. But with the technique that I teach, it goes a step further, because if you don't know what's causing your problem with money or love or health or whatever, you can use muscle testing on yourself to figure out what it is. And once you figure it out, then you can use the tapping sequence, not just for getting rid of stress, but also for getting rid of limiting beliefs, for installing an empowering belief instead, for forgiving someone, for getting rid of PTSD or fears or anxiety, any of those things. So
Yeah,
that's
it's been a very interesting process for me personally, because through each session that I've done with you as one-on-one, and through each session I've done personally just by myself, there's been enlightening moments. And for a lot of our viewers, they're very well versed, if you will, with meditation practice. And we all know that meditation, the definition is to know thyself. So as we grow in spiritual enlightenment, we become more familiar with ourselves. And so as we go through the process of using your technique, I personally have had a lot of awareness of what's going on inside of my body, where the energy is coming from, which is not so important, but it's just kind of cool as a science guy, as a guy who's curious. It's neat to know, oh, that came from my second center. Oh, must be because of blah, blah, blah. Or this came out of my, there was one time, and I think I told you this, it moved from my second center all the way up into my heart and then came out through my throat. And I was like, wow, that was really cool. And it was a big deal. The thing that we were working on was a pretty big deal. But so to know thyself, and then as you become enlightened, you will have thoughts, remembrances, or knowings. So you may not really know what you're clearing. You may have a couple of things that you're like, oh, I need to work on phobia or something. But as you clear that, let's just use that example. I have a fear of spiders, just throwing it out there. So you work to clear it. And as you clear it, a memory comes up of when you were 4 years old, wearing these flip-flops and got bit by a spider. So, and then you're like, oh, well, now I realize that I had a little bit of a fear of wearing flip-flops. You see how it moves through a process. And then you may, like, I've had songs come to my memory. I've had smells come to my memory as we're working to clear all of this. And I've tried to be very studious about it and write this stuff down, because it'll help me go back and dig a little deeper. The other thing I found interesting is meditation practice. So the main thing is I know that our viewers are going to be like, well, why do this? Meditation works as well. And it's like, well, you have to respect every modality. There are so many people out there that have traveled and learned all the different modalities, and they come back as masters. So you can't just say one thing is the absolute. And I feel like if you can use the meditation to know yourself and become familiar, then this MTT process can help clear the stuff that you're stuck on. And I was stuck on several different things. So I'm sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent, but what do you think about all that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a place for everything. I do Dr. Joe's meditation myself. I love his meditations, and for me, it really helped me to do this process that I'm doing to help get rid of limiting beliefs very quickly. It doesn't
Yep.
have to take a long time. Like when you have this technology, I look at it like it's like a brain hack. It's like a brain hack. Literally, you can go in there, figure out what's in your subconscious, decide if you like it or not, and then use the technique to get rid of whatever it is you don't want. And so that's very powerful.
I like the forgiveness calls that you're doing. I think it's very awesome that you're doing. You're giving your time, your energy, your knowledge to for at no cost to the participants to allow people to come on for an hour or so and learn how to do this tapping, or not necessarily tapping, but holding meridian points and doing a forgiveness process for one or more items. And this is every Sunday, and people are welcome to attend more than one. So,
Totally. They can attend every week, and then that way they'll forgive 52 people a year. They'll feel a lot lighter at the end of that. I feel like that's my little contribution to the world to ease the pain and suffering that's going on there. Like, you know, help a lot of people get lighter. And the funny thing is like I have dozens of my people who are coming to these calls that report afterward that whoever they were forgiving ended up getting in touch with them and they were able to heal the relationship. So it's
wow.
pretty amazing. Yeah, dozens. I mean, it happened a lot. It's really cool.
Yeah, there's been that reminded me. I wanted to kind of talk about your experience with quantum entanglement, and you kind of briefly talked about it when you speak of me personally is forgiving, let's say my wife. I'm forgiving my wife for one or more things. And then the outcome of that is my wife starts to behave and act in a different way. And I never even told her I did it. You know,
Exactly.
the children, if you have children involved in a relationship, they receive healing benefit from a quantum entanglement level. That's been my personal experience. You've had other experience as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a lot of stories like that. One of my student, she has like, I think 4 kids, and one of them had some issue in school. And so she came to mom and the dad was all upset and they wanted to like go to the school and complain and do all this stuff. And she says, well, let's just see, like, it sounds like there's a belief in there. So she tested the daughter, and sure enough, she had a certain belief. And so then she decided to test all the other kids. And sure enough, all the kids had the belief, the same belief. And then the kids said to her, Mom, I think you have that belief too. So then she ended up muscle testing herself for that belief. And sure enough, she had that belief. So then she decided to clear her belief first. She cleared her belief. And then after she cleared it, she retested the kids and it was gone in all the kids. And then the dad, who had been so upset before, she went to him and said, so do you still want to like go to the school? Oh, no, it's really not that big of a deal. Like all of a sudden, his charge on it was completely gone also.
It's my understanding that children receive this programming because at a very young age, like basically from the day they're born until some age, and that varies with who you talk to,
Yeah.
They're just soaking all of this up. They're watching, they're observing, they're listening, they're tasting, smelling. All of the senses are responsible for basically programming the subconscious. And so whatever their parents are providing, whatever the household is providing, whatever grandparents are providing, I mean, there's all these different elements out there that are basically providing the programming, and the child is in basically a hypnotic state. And now the number I get is 6 to 7 years of age. The brainwave patterns are pretty much what is it, alpha? They're basically hypnotized.
Yeah.
And they're just soaking it all up like a sponge. And but you mentioned the other day that you have seen in your practice up to around 17 years of age that children will receive benefit from the clearing of the parent. So I don't know if the hypnotic state ends at 7 years of age, but the quantum entanglement thing continues. It's a very perplexing question. I'm curious your thoughts.
Yes. Well, like you said, like until 7, and I find in my practice that's until about 10 years old is when the kids, you know, are very susceptible to just everything they see becomes part of their program. You know, monkey see, monkey do. And that's why you see like little little boys who walk just like their dad, even their stride, like, and their tone and their facial expression and everything. So it's not just the subconscious programming about beliefs and that type of thing, but it's even like in their physiology. And you could argue that it's coming from their DNA, but it's more than that. It's like expressions and everything. And so that when I work with people and it goes back in time, it oftentimes is between between conception to 10 years old is when the programming is installed. And then even though it's installed, when the parent is starting to work on themselves and getting rid of some of these limiting beliefs, then what I found is that it actually, they start their frequency changes. And the kids are like tuning forks. So as soon as the parent's frequency changes, the kid's frequency changes. And so they're affected. I found about till 16, plus or minus a year, is that up to that age, when the parent changes their programming, it seems to change it in the child as well, which is great. So you can actually like change yourself and help your kids eliminate these kinds of things as well, right?
Well,
So it's pretty powerful.
Let's stretch that and say we can help our spouses or our partners in life, right? By the same modality. We could assist or help our coworkers, maybe. I mean, quantum entanglement stretches beyond a genetic tie, right? When you work with somebody, you exchange energy with that person. And so, yeah, you could effectively be helping other people as well. It's pretty cool.
Absolutely, because I guess we see that in the forgiveness process, right? Because now I've had, thousands of people do this process, and I've had so many reports of people saying that it's affecting, the person they forgave, like in a good way. Like all of a sudden they're coming back, or, they're apologizing, or now all of a sudden they're acting as if they're okay with that person. It's very interesting. So if it's affecting that, I could see why it could affect others as well. I just haven't really observed that like specifically. But obviously, when you change your belief and you stop being critical, for example, it will definitely change the people that you're around if you're not criticizing them anymore, right? They're going to be responding differently to you. So in that way, for sure, as well.
Well, we kind of skipped over that part, and I want to highlight your forgiveness again. The weekly call on Sundays. What time and how would they find information for that call?
Right. So basically right now I'm doing that at 1 p.m. every Sunday, except the 4 Sundays out of the year when I teach the 3-day training. But other than that, every Sunday at 1 p.m. And they can find that on my website, drteshna.com. So drteshna.com, TESHNA.com. And if you go on that, you'll see a heading for workshops. You go in that, you click on that, and you'll see like I have the 1 hour. I also have a 1-day MTT immersion that's free. And then I have the 3-day training and the membership.
Very good. And we'll also put it in the show notes, and that way people can find it there as well. What is the coolest thing that you have personally witnessed in your one-on-one sessions? And perhaps the coolest thing you have witnessed when a person has reported to you, I did this on my own.
Well, boy, so many of them. Like I just have to think about one that's outstanding. Let me just think about that. Okay, there was a woman. She had been in a marriage for like 20 plus years, and it was a very abusive type of situation, and she just couldn't get out of it. She just wouldn't. And she came to me because she part of her wanted to get out of that abusive situation, but a huge part of her couldn't. And so we basically looked at her love blueprint, and she believed that love and life means being abused. You see? And that was just one of the things. And so because she believed that love meant being abused, of course she couldn't leave that abusive situation. So we changed the belief from that to believing that love means being respected. And once we cleared that belief and all the stress around leaving, she was able to leave him. And then she manifested an amazing other relationship that there was no abuse in. And she's been now married with this guy for at least 15 years. So I've been doing this work for a long time. So, the proof is in the pudding, right? It's kind of like you change the belief system and all of a sudden you're able to do something you could never do before. And conversely, I had another woman who she and her husband decided to adopt a child after being together for at least 20 years. They had been together 20 years, didn't have any children, and decided to adopt a child. And up to that point, they had a really great relationship. Like they were really getting along. They were traveling all over. They were just having a blast with their lives. And then they decided to adopt a child. Now, in my training, I explained how we have not only love blueprints and money blueprints and career blueprints and all that, but we also have parenting blueprints. We even have marriage blueprints. In other words, two people could live together, not married, and have no problem. But as soon as they get married, the marriage blueprint kicks in and boom, now they have all these problems, right? Well, the same thing can happen with parenting blueprint. In other words, they didn't have kids, so they were not in that parenting blueprint and they were fine. But as soon as they adopted that little girl, their parenting blueprint kicked in. And all of a sudden they were arguing, they were fighting, they were like having all these issues. So she came to me and talk about entanglement in the sense that he wasn't willing to come to me to get worked on, but she was. And so she came to me and I just worked on her and cleared all the things that came up. Like she was jealous of the attention that he was putting on the child because when she was a child, she was the firstborn, but when the second was born, then all the attention went on that. And so, you know what I mean? It's like there was like this big thing going on that she felt like left out, right? Once the child was there. But on the other hand, she could see she was happy that her husband loved the girl, right? But on the other hand, she wanted all his love to just go to her, right? Because of that experience she had as a child. So we cleared all of that and all the anger that she felt and the resentment and all the stress she felt about that, and letting go of the belief that love means being number two, which is what happened to her when she was a child. And so we got rid of all that. And then all of a sudden there was no issues anymore. She went back and she wasn't feeling jealous and she wasn't feeling upset that he was loving the girl and that giving her attention and all that. And they've never had another issue. And the girl is now 23, so, and she came when they had adopted her, she was probably like 1 year old, 1 or 2 years old or something like that. So.
Well, in the quantum field, it knows no time and it knows no distance, right? And so I was in the Riviera Maya doing this forgiveness process on my own, and I had not mentioned anything to my wife about it. And a week or so goes by and I visit with her and she asked me if I was clearing anything. And I said, yeah, I was clearing some stuff. And she had mentioned that one of our children was kind of struggling for a few days and had a little bit of malaise going on. And I think Cheryl, even mentioned that she had a few things going on. So it's really cool. It's almost become a little bit of a game of curiosity for me because it's like I don't want to say anything. I want to wait and see what the universe provides as the evidence that, okay, yeah, this all works. This is all real. Now, the one thing you didn't mention was any of your students who are practicing the work on their own, is there any really cool testimonial that you might be able to share about that?
Yes, absolutely. So one of them, you know her, she's one of the members and she lives in Vilcabamba also. And she took the training and she's like 70 and she hadn't been in a relationship for at least 10 years, maybe longer, and thought that this would never happen again for her. She's 70, she's feeling old, whatever. And so she just felt like that's it. She's never going to be in a relationship again and wasn't looking for one or anything. And her health situation was a little bit on the iffy, and her money situation also, and all these different things. And so she took the training and she started applying like religiously all the things that I said, and she wrote her list, for if she was going to meet the man that she wanted and all that type of thing that I teach, because I also teach people how to use this technique to manifest your dreams. And as a matter of fact, that's what I've done to manifest my dream life, right? That's why I'm here in Ecuador. This is not a fake background. That's my actual view from my living room right here. I'm sitting in my living room. And so, and, you know, I've been with my husband for almost 21 years now. And, you know, I'm fit and healthy and I have money. And it's like I have it together. And it's thanks to these techniques because I cleared all these beliefs because I came from a background where my mother, you know, was a single mom. She was making just enough money so we'd have food on the table and all that. So I didn't get that wealth blueprint from my mother or my father for that matter, right? So I had to work on getting rid of all these limiting beliefs that money is evil and is bad and all these different things so that I would be able to be a wealthy person instead of a poor person. And same thing with health. My mother was struggling with her weight her whole life practically. I never had to do that. You know, I just made sure that I was clear on what I wanted in my body. And same thing with love. You know, my mom obviously was a single mom and she was married, but then they split up when I was 2 years old. And then she never had another relationship. Well, I was determined that I wasn't going to be like that, right? So I had to clear all this stuff so that I wouldn't be like that. But anyway, so she followed all these different things that I mentioned. She wrote her list for that. And within a month, after clearing all her blueprints that she had on love that weren't serving her, she met the man of her dreams. And then
That's awesome.
her health improved and her money situation improved and all the dreams that she had started to happen. And so it's like she's so over the moon. That's been over a year since then. She's still with that man, really happy, you know, and her dreams are coming closer and closer to what she wants it to be. So it's very exciting.
You mentioned, you know, basically law of attraction. You teach in your course how to attract what you would like in your life. We were learning just earlier this week, again, that we are the creators of our life. And it seemed very real to me. I mean, I've heard this several times, but you know how our brain works. You know, we're constantly fighting the subconscious. So I heard it again, and I'm like, oh, it finally clicked. You know, we're the creator of our life. And the funny thing is, we're always the creator. The problem comes in is you're creating good, and you're also, in my opinion, creating what we perceive as bad. It's just a creation. And the bad creation is part of that subconscious programming that's constantly running, sending the thoughts out into the vortex. Again, my opinion, would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yes. So basically with the law of attraction, you know, there's so many opinions out there, but basically what it means is that you have to resonate the right frequency to attract to you what you want. If you're resonating in lack, you can't attract abundance. Now, how do you get yourself to resonate abundance instead of lack? You clear your subconscious programming about lack.
Yep.
Once you clear the subconscious programming that's making you feel lack, and you put in instead the empowering beliefs that of abundance, then you start to resonate abundance. And now you attract abundance to you. Do you see? It's a matter of resonance and frequency.
Which, you know, I just earlier today, I was talking with somebody about business, and they were saying that their partners were upset because they were selling product too cheap. And the person was like, but I just want to sell product. And I said, yeah, you know what? There's something to say about moving product, even though you may not be making as much profit. And then I used these words. I said, well, you're sending a signal out to the universe saying, we're moving product. And the universe brings back more people to move more product. So I don't know. This is how I explained it to this person, but it made sense to me. You know, it's what signal we're sending out. So if you're constantly trying to sell a product too expensive and you're making no sales, then is your brain thinking every morning when you wake up, I'm going to get no sales? So is that the frequency you're resonating with? And then is that what becomes your reality?
Yeah, exactly. Whatever you believe, you're right. You know, it's like whatever you believe, you're right. Whatever's in the subconscious always wins. So if you are subconsciously thinking, oh, I'm probably not going to make any sales again today, then you're probably not going to make any sales today because that's the belief. But if you turn that around, that it's easy for you to make a sale and that you can easily find the people who need whatever you're selling, then all of a sudden you're manifesting that. Absolutely.
Well, that's pretty cool. I know I've done a lot of work on my own to check my programming on things in my life. Again, as a studious person, I make a list. I started by thinking, okay, what areas of my life would I like to improve? You know, and I start writing out things about that, checking them using kinesiology and semantic testing, and
Yes.
found it very interesting what things proved to be congruent or incongruent. You know, it was kind of surprising in some cases. Um, and I've cleared those, and I have seen evidence in my life that once those are cleared, now the signal I'm sending out has changed, and I'm attracting a different circumstance to my life. Um, the other thing I was thinking about is just how we become more consciously aware of the subconscious. I know it's kind of a word blender, but the more we do this, the more we talk about it, the more we work through this testing, I feel like we become very aware, consciously aware of the subconscious to the point where we start telling ourselves, ooh, that might be a program. I might want to check that. And I just think that's a healthy thing that we're having a conversation about this, right? That it's not
Hmm.
woo woo. It's not, something else that people are all putting down. It's like, okay, ah,
Yeah. And another way to that I use for myself and teach that it's kind of like how you feel, like your emotions are a guide to what your programming is. So if you're like in a situation and you start to feel bad, or you feel stressed about something, then you can ask yourself, okay, what is it I'm stressed about? Like, what's going on here? Like, why did I all of a sudden go from I was okay to being stressed? And so you become aware of your own emotional state, and that tells you whether there's something in there to work on or not. So if you're
hmm,
not feeling good about something, you can use that as a guide to know that there's something in there. And then you can start testing yourself to find out what that is.
that's actually new to me. I want to repeat so I understand correctly. You're saying that like the first thing we mentioned is look at your life holistically. Key categories: family, marriage, love, money, those kind of things. And identify areas that are problematic and you would like to possibly change. And then you're also mentioning stress levels or anxiety levels could be another indicator of an item that's not correct in your program or not congruent is a better way of saying it.
Exactly. Exactly. Because when you feel bad, if you feel anxious or you feel worried or you feel fear or you feel, just stress and you don't even know why, there's definitely a program that just kicked in about whatever it is you're doing, and sometimes it's completely subconscious. Like you could be like, maybe you had a car accident like 10 years ago in a blue car. And now you happen to go in a blue car of somebody else and you start to feel all anxious. And you're not realizing that it's because you're in a blue car and you had a car accident in a blue car before. Do you see? But our subconscious remembers everything. Our subconscious remembers everything. And so whether we're conscious of it or not, it's trying to protect you. So it's making you feel nervous about going in that car. So maybe you get out of that car so you don't take a chance that there might be another accident. Do you see? So
Yep.
paying attention to how you feel will give you guidance about what thing you need to work on. Because as long as you're feeling this in there, there's something to work on.
So I want to briefly go into an area that some of our viewers may struggle with, and I just would like to open up the invitation to just hang in there and let's see where this resonates with you in your heart. Um, Past lives. We've been talking everything about this life right now. And you said the subconscious knows everything. But as time evolves, as I evolve, as you have evolved, I think there is so much anecdotal evidence out there and other evidence, not just anecdotal, but just think we're seeing, we're touching, we're witnessing evidence that this person never went through this experience in this lifetime, but yet they're struggling with something in the subconscious. And the only answer could be it's from another lifetime. Would you like to share any experience that you've had with that?
Well, like you said, it's controversial because some people believe in past lives, some people don't believe in past lives. And so I never go in there unless somebody wants to go in there. But if they do want to go in there, we found some pretty interesting things. Like I had an example one time, I had a woman who was deathly afraid of water. I mean, she couldn't even take a shower. So she had to do like a washcloth, like that kind of cleansing for herself her whole life. And somebody told her maybe she should come and see Dr. Teshna. Maybe I could help. Right. So she comes to me and I ask, like, did you ever have any trauma around water? Anything? No, nothing. She had a normal childhood. She never had any traumas whatsoever that she could recall, in her life about water, but she had been like this ever since she could remember. And so she said that she had a feeling that it might come from a past life. So we muscle tested for that and found that indeed in her emotional reality, she had a past life where she drowned. And ever since then had been deathly afraid of water. So we were able to actually clear that fear and that phobia of water by her acknowledging that where it came from and how in this life she wasn't going to have that possibility more than likely in a bathtub or in a shower. so
Yep.
so that she could actually have a normal life with this. So we cleared all kinds of beliefs around that, that life means if she's near water, she's going to die, that type of thing. And all these different beliefs and the fears and the stress level, because in the technique, I also teach a stress reduction protocol and a fear reduction protocol and so on. So we use the fear reduction protocol, which is like a phobia, right? And get that stress all the way down to zero so that she actually was okay. And then we did the test, right? Had her put her hand on the water and she was okay. And then like have a sink full of water and put both hands in there and she was okay. And then we just kept doing this until she was completely fine. So, but that for her, it came from that emotional reality of having had a past life where she drowned.
That's amazing how she was able to recover. And, I like the way you say emotional reality and this person's emotional reality. And it's a very, I guess I would say, safe and secure way of saying it because you never know. I mean, it could be just something that they've conceived at some point, somehow, some way in their mind. It could be an argumentative thing. But anyway, I just think it's cool, though, that there is a tool out there that really helps people. And I know I've used this on myself personally. My wife has used it. I've used it briefly on my children. My children are having positive effects from me using it on myself and, Cheryl using it on her. So that there's a lot of evidence that it works. And it's so cool to have that ability, regardless of where your beliefs are. Every person, I feel in my heart, every person is struggling to some degree and can benefit from this process.
Mhm.
So I guess I'd like to give you the floor just to wrap up. Is there anything else that I didn't mention that you'd like to visit about? Or
I guess just the idea that the proof is in the pudding. That's the way I see it, right? So for any of the viewers here, if you would like to experience it yourself, then just come to one of the free forgiveness call on every Sunday at 1 p.m. And like I said, you can just go on the website, drteshna.com, and then you can sign up, register. I have once you click on that link of the forgiveness call, there's like a schedule of all the Sundays, and then you can choose which one you want, and then it will send you the link, and then you'll experience it yourself. That's the best way. I could talk about it till the cows come home, but if you experience it, there's nothing that will take that experience from you.
I'll say this as my own walking, talking testimony. I had some things like so just a little teaser for the forgiveness process or for the stress reduction. You test with kinesiology what the level of stress is, and it's not 0 to 10. For me, a lot of them was like greater than 1,000,000. It was huge. And I remember feeling flushed in my face and just other physiological effects as I was working to reduce just the stress alone about a certain circumstance or whatever we were working on. But I can tell you from my own experience that once the process was complete and that number through kinesiology testing was now 0 or even less than 0, you just have this big smile on your face. You're like, you're happy, you know, this 100-pound backpack has been taken off your back now, and you feel relieved. You feel good about life again. Now, of course, there's other things that are down in there, but you get that effect from releasing that one thing you were working on, and it's really cool. You know, it's a huge benefit.
Yeah, it literally releases the charge from the meridian system, the nervous system, and the cellular memory. So that's why it's a body-mind technique. It's not just willing yourself to forgive someone. You literally let go of the effects, the physiological effects of whatever happened with that person, or whatever it is that's creating that fear or phobia, or whatever the things you're working on that created that block in your meridian system. It literally is discharged from the system. And that's why you feel the difference physically as well as emotionally. Powerful stuff.
Well, Dr. Teschen, it's been an honor to have you take time out of your day to come on here and visit with our viewers about your product that you've produced and all the time. You know, it's hard for me to really, I guess, fully appreciate, because I've never spent that much time in a career developing like you have. And that's probably the right word to use. It's very honorable and admirable. And this is your life work that you're providing now to the world. And you're providing some of it free of charge, and helping people truly find peace and forgiveness.
Yes,
and,
exactly.
and it's not just forgiveness, it's being grateful too. I mean, that was what I was working through, was not only the forgiveness part, but also finding the way to be grateful, because it made me who I am today. And I think that, as you mentioned in your training, that is truly the way to break the karmic cycle, is, you know, to first forgive, but then also just be grateful for that event or circumstance. So anyway, I don't want to get off any more tangents here, but many thanks to you, Dr. Teschen, not only for helping me personally find peace and releasing these beliefs, but thank you for all you do for the planet.
You're welcome. My pleasure.